She came to find a rare flower, but found a person who would change her life forever. He's a forest ranger living in solitude. She's a botanist from the city. Their worlds collided in the mountains where one wrong step could cost a life. Subscribe to my channel and like to receive more interesting stories.
The only sound in the ancient forest was the crunch of Elara's boots on frozen pine needles and the ragged saw of her own breath. The air at this altitude was thin and sharp as shattered glass. She pulled the collar of her jacket higher, the thick wool doing little to ward off the biting cold. Her GPS device beeped insistently, leading her deeper into the Carpathian wilderness, far from the marked trails. She was here for one reason, to find the legendary ice-hard orchid, a flower last documented a century ago and considered extinct. Documenting it would cement her career as a botanist. Surviving the expedition would be a bonus.
Subscribe to my channel and like to receive more interesting stories.
A sudden crack, like a gunshot, echoed through the silent trees. Elara froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. It was followed by a low, pained groan. Cautiously, she moved toward the sound, pushing through a thicket of snow-laden fir branches. She found him in a small clearing, pinned under a fallen tree limb. A man, his face contorted in pain, his powerful frame rendered helpless by the weight of the wood. His eyes, a startling shade of storm gray, met hers with a mixture of defiance and desperation. A thick, dark beard couldn't hide the sharp lines of his jaw, and his clothes, though practical and worn, were of a rugged, local make. "Don't just stand there," he grunted, his voice rough and deep. "Either help or leave." His charm was evidently as impaired as his situation. Elara dropped her pack, her scientific mind immediately assessing the physics of the problem. "I'm trying to decide if helping you is worth the inevitable sarcasm," she retorted, positioning herself at one end of the limb.
Subscribe to my channel and like to receive more interesting stories.
It took all her strength and a clever use of a smaller log as a lever to shift the weight just enough for him to drag himself free. He collapsed onto the snow, clutching his leg, which was already swelling above his boot. "Lukas," he said finally, looking up at her. "And thank you. Elara, can you walk?" He tried to stand, his face paling instantly. "No." Her expedition was over. She couldn't leave him. Using her satellite phone was futile. There was no signal in this steep valley. Her only option was to get him to his shelter. He directed her to a nearby cabin, so well integrated into the landscape it was nearly invisible. It was a single room, dominated by a large stone fireplace, shelves filled with preserved food, and walls hung with tools and animal pelts. This was no weekend retreat, this was a home. Over the next few days, as a blizzard raged outside, they were trapped together. Elara, the woman of data and peer-reviewed journals, found herself tending to a man who lived by an entirely different set of rules. Lukas was a game warden, a guardian of these mountains, and he viewed her quest for the orchid with open contempt. "You city people," he muttered one evening as she changed the poultice on his leg. "You come here with your gadgets, looking for pretty things to put your name on. You don't understand this place. It's not a resource to be mined for fame. It's a living entity. And you think hiding its wonders is the answer?" She shot back, her fingers lingering a moment too long on the bandage. "If people don't know what's here, they won't care to protect it." Their arguments were fierce, a clash of two fundamentally different worldviews. But in the quiet moments between, a different kind of tension grew. She caught him watching her as she organized her notes, a curious softness in his stormy eyes. He found himself drawn to the fierce intelligence in hers, the unwavering dedication that mirrored his own, even if their methods were opposed. He taught her to read the signs of the forest, the meaning behind a broken twig, the language of animal tracks. She, in turn, showed him the intricate world through her magnifying glass, the hidden ecosystems in a handful of soil. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows as their conversation stretched into the night, moving from professional disagreement to personal revelation. He spoke of losing his family, of choosing a life of solitude. She spoke of the relentless pressure to achieve, of a life lived in laboratories that felt increasingly sterile. One night, after a particularly heated debate about conservation, the air between them shifted. They were standing close by the fire, the heat a stark contrast to the cold outside. "You're the most infuriating woman I've ever met," Lukas whispered, his gaze dropping to her lips. "The feeling is mutual," Elara breathed, not backing away. The kiss was not gentle. It was a release of days of pent-up frustration, attraction, and intellectual friction. It was a raw, hungry claiming that left them both breathless. Clothes were shed in a frantic, desperate rush, falling to the rough-hewn wooden floor. There, in the firelight, with the wind howling a lament outside, they came together with a desperate urgency. His hands, callous and strong, explored her body with a surprising reverence, mapping her curves as if memorizing a new terrain. Her nails dug into the hard muscles of his back, pulling him closer. It was not making love. It was a battle and a surrender, a storm of sensation that wiped away all arguments, all differences, leaving only the stark, undeniable truth of their connection.
Subscribe to my channel and like to receive more interesting stories.
The morning after brought a strange, quiet peace. The blizzard had passed, leaving the world outside blanketed in pristine white. Wrapped in furs and each other, they didn't speak of the night before. They didn't need to. The dynamic had irrevocably changed. As Lukas's leg healed, they fell into a new rhythm. Their days were spent together, Elara helping with his warden duties, Lukas helping her search for clues about the orchid's habitat. The professional rivalry had melted into a seamless partnership. He knew the land's soul. She knew the science of its body. They were two halves of a whole, and in the quiet majesty of the mountains, they built something fragile and beautiful. The real world intruded in the form of a crackling voice on Lukas's old radio. A logging company, having secured a disputed permit, was moving into the adjacent valley, the very valley where Lukas believed the ice heart orchid might still bloom. "We have to stop them," Elara said, her voice tight with determination. Lukas shook his head, his face grim. "You can't stop them with a plant, Elara. They have papers, money, machines." "Then we'll use their own system against them," she insisted. "If I can find the orchid, document it, we could have the area declared a protected sanctuary." It was a race against time. They packed supplies and set out for the remote valley, a journey of 2 days through treacherous, beautiful terrain. When they finally reached it, it was a hidden paradise, a cathedral of ancient trees and untouched snow. And there, nestled in a rocky alcove shielded from the wind, they found it. A single, perfect ice heart orchid, its petals the color of glacial ice with a heart of the deepest violet. It was more beautiful than any drawing or description. Elara took her photographs, collected a minute soil sample, her hands trembling not from the cold, but from the sheer magnitude of the discovery. As she worked, Lukas stood guard, his presence a solid, reassuring force. Their victory was short-lived. On their return to the cabin, they found a notice nailed to the door, a final warning from the logging company. They knew he was the only obstacle. At night, lying in his arms, Elara made a decision. I have to go back. I have to take this data to the capital, to the university, to the media. It's the only way. Lukas's arm tightened around her. I know. The two words were heavy with the unspoken fear that she would not return, that the pull of her world, the accolades, the career would be stronger than what they had found in the mountains. She left at first light, the memory of his kiss a brand on her lips. For weeks, she fought the bureaucratic war, using her evidence, her reputation, her every skill. She presented her findings, gave interviews, and faced down the corporate lawyers. It was the fight of her life. And she won. The valley was declared a protected nature reserve. The moment the decision was final, she didn't go to the press conferences or the university celebrations. She packed a single bag and drove back to the mountains. She hiked the now familiar path to the cabin, her heart pounding with a fear greater than any she'd felt facing a boardroom. He was standing outside, as if he'd been waiting for her. He didn't smile. He just watched her approach, his gray eyes searching hers. I came back, she said, stopping a few feet from him, her voice barely a whisper. What? The single word hung between them, full of hope and fear. She closed the distance, reaching into her pocket. She pulled out a small, sealed specimen jar. Inside, perfectly preserved, was the ice heart orchid. Because the only thing rarer than this, she said, her eyes glistening, is what I found with you. A year later, in their valley now safe forever, Lukas didn't get down on one knee. They were standing by the very rock where the orchid had bloomed. He simply took her hand and placed a ring in her palm, crafted from polished stone and silver, shaped like a tiny, perfect orchid. Elara, he said, his voice steady and sure. My life was a winter before you. Will you stay and make every season with me? Her yes was carried away by the mountain wind, a new promise woven into the ancient silence, a testament to the fact that the greatest discoveries are not of things, but of the people with whom we are meant to share our world.
Subscribe to my channel and like to receive more interesting stories.